Hi, welcome to our last class together, everyone, in the winter series. And it definitely is feeling spring-like out. The birds are have their new songs, and the days are longer. We changed our clock, so this will be kind of this nice segue today, a practice of just final thaw out and defrosting. And so we're prepared for the spring, nurturing our growth, right? So what we've been kind of harboring and harnessing and working on in that internal world, that now we can start to plant our seeds and allow for growth in the spring season. Which reminds me, I'm working on the creation phase of that. So I hope you join me again for the spring season series that will begin April 7th. There'll be 7 sessions for $77 and 30 minutes so at each class. So same platform setup, and I hope that, via Zoom, and I hope that you will join me. It'll be super fun to kind of reset our nervous systems, clear out any mind clutter, and get like very creative in that growth phase of spring. So all right, let's begin. So we'll start seated. So join me over my mat. Let me just turn this down a little bit here. There we go. See me real good. Hi. So find a comfortable seat. I have this beautiful, peaceful candle today that symbolizes connection with the numbers 222. So invoking not only connection, but peace. And it smells divine. Wish you could smell it. But was handmade by one of my friends. So that'll be joining us today. And let's get settled. So, however you like to sit, kind of find that grounding through the the seat, the sitting bones, aka ischial tuberosities, and find a lengthened spine here, up open across your heart, and just let your shoulders settle. Right? It's like what we cultivate in our bodies is ultimately like our mind will follow. So invoking this kind of deep sense of relaxation and reconnection here and finding our inner peace. Kind of sitting here watching our breath, kind of noticing how we breathe, where we breathe. Kind of after you take a few moments to check in and notice and observe and see if you can widen your breath and deepen your breath just a little bit. Even breathe a little deeper into the belly. Have the emphasis on the inhale, like in that those lower lungs, the lower part of your ribs, into the diaphragm and into the belly. Right away, we can make a shift just with our breathing. So we're not breathing in the upper chest, which is more of that fight, flight, freeze mode up in this upper chest breathing, but really finding that the deep breaths into the lower part of the lungs and lower belly is getting into more of that rest, digest phase, like in the nervous system, instead of that kind of panic mode. So allow for that adjustment, right, to ease in, and it may take the whole class. Just kind of bring your attention back, kind of reel your focus back into those breaths, which will help kind of bring you into that place of relaxation in the parasympathetic system of the nervous system. And keep that length in your spine. And we'll sit for just another minute, focusing our attention on our breaths. And when those thoughts tend to enter in, like and clutter in, or worries or to-do lists, just let them float on by and come back into your breath. Keep your breaths nice and soft and fluid. Keep a lightness in your spine. And then gently blink your eyes open, letting the light in. And then let's recross our legs. The opposite one in front may feel like really weird and goofy. We do things kind of in patterns in our bodies, and we may automatically cross the other leg. So, yeah, keep your heart lifted, and then you'll lean back and you'll turn your fingertips toward you. Keep your chest lifted. Good. Just going to make sure it's on record. Just kind of like lean back and open up through your heart. Good. Excellent. So I have my fingers turned back to this way. And open in the forearms, nice opening in through the hand. We hold so much tension in our hands. So it's nice to keep them open, and we hold our devices or type on our computer, or, just gripping things. So it really is nice to kind of find that freedom and the openness in the hand. Good. And then lean forward. Good. And then we'll keep those legs crossed and then fold into it here. Kind of funny story. I often use earplugs, and sometimes I'll hold them in my hand, like in my bed just before I'm going to sleep. And oftentimes I wake up the next morning still holding them in my hand. So never put them in. I fell asleep, but kind of interesting that, just even that holding and clasping of things, like amazing that I held my hand like that. It feels good to, like I said, open up those hands, spread out the palms on or fingers even here as you fold forward. And find your smooth, deep breaths in kind of the back part of the lungs here as we lean forward. The back part of the rib cage. Some nice, smooth, loving, deep breaths here. Good. And then walk the hands in toward you and come on upright. Excellent. And now, taking off my sweater, we're getting serious. We'll move right into a little core work. So grab your block or something similar, what you have at home. And you'll kind of bring it right back. Hopefully you can see it's on its lowest level, just an inch or two away from your low back and sacrum. And get nice and long through your spine. And then that you kind of lean into that block like a little bumper. And the block is just a reminder to keep your spine straight. So if you don't have a block, it's totally fine to just lean back without it. You don't even need the block. You have that little bumper if you have it there. Keep the heart and across the chest open. Good, and just interlace your hands out in front of you. Keep your neck in neutral. And so probably feeling quite a bit of work already, just sustaining this hold. So Keep that navel towards spine, heart lifted, ground through your feet so you don't feel your thighs overworking too much. And then we'll twist over to the right and just a tap outside of the right knee, and then come back to center and twist left. Try not to try to avoid that low back rounding at all costs so that you're not using your low back or your neck for that matter. A lot of times we try to use our neck and low back for this. So really try to focus, maybe even close your eyes as you twist. You feel your obliques working. You feel those deep inner muscles around your spine working. Just a few more. Really get that twist and rotation of the spine, making that effective with engagement of the core. Good. Let's do one more each side. Good. And then come back to center and press forward. Get long through your spine. Let's place that block off to the side and roll onto our backs and stretch it out all the way. I'm have my hands overhead, like I'm holding onto opposite elbows and pointing out through my toes, getting really super long and lengthened out. Just use those abdominals. So it's so nice to stretch them out. Reaching, kind of lengthening out through the torso. Another full breath here. Good. And then lower the arms down. Good. And let's bend our knees. And we'll take a half happy baby. So the left leg stays exactly as it is, or you could straighten it out if you want, either version. And you'll bring your hand out to the right side of that foot, the right foot, and just start to direct that right knee toward the ground. Just ever so gently. And again, you could straighten out that left leg if you want. You'll get a little bit more stretch in that front of the thigh, kind of fan out your toes, relax your shoulders. Recirculate your breath here, recirculate that air, the oxygen coming in, the carbon dioxide leaving. So it's like even just getting cleansed out here with your breath. And then bring that leg, that right leg a little bit more towards center, and then hold the back of the thigh and reach the leg up toward the sky. So we're getting into a bit of a hamstring stretch here. Heel up, toes toward your face. And you want to feel a good stretch behind at the hamstring, maybe up at the calf. Good. Take another deep breath here. And then bend that right knee. And we'll take it to a twist so that right knee comes left, and then wind and reach out through that right arm. Getting a nice twist here. And see if your right hand can land down on the mat, or I guess it's off the mat, sorry, on the rug or your floor. Really open up through my pecs here in the shoulder, the front side of the shoulder. You might feel that too. And then slowly come back to center. Good. And then release that right knee, and we're taking a fallen tree pose. So basically we're in tree, just laying on our back. So that right foot comes into the upper inner thigh, and then the right leg just hangs out to the side. And notice, like, I feel my pelvis is really tilting over to the right. So see if you can try to even it out. It may or may not, depending, like, use your core but then I feel like, whoa, that's a big, for me, a big groin stretch on that right inner thigh and adductor. So take care here with your breath. Like if you need support, you could put the block underneath that right knee too, if it feels like it's really hanging out to the side or you feel like too much of a stretch. Kind of like, learn about your body here, right? This is an opportunity to listen to its messages and honor the support that you need. The props that may help you and enhance the pose, right? What your body needs today. Sorry, every day is so different. Still keeping that left leg engaged like you were standing on it, right? So there's a lot of integrity into that left leg. And then take your right hand and help boost that right leg back up, back to neutral, plant it back down, help it out of the pose. Give a little support, good. Bend both knees. Take constructive rest, so your feet kind of wiggle to the edges of the mat, knees touch. One hand to your heart, one hand to your belly. Good, and then bring the knees separate. And then we'll take happy baby on the left. So we'll do those few poses on this side. So really hold on to the outer edge of the foot. If you can't reach there, you could hold on to the back of the leg. Just whichever version, just try to get the ball of the foot up toward the sky. Kind of find that neutral in the foot and really fan out the toes. Your choice to straighten out that right leg or not. Little half happy baby. If you can draw the ribs in a little bit so you're not arching your back. And get that core is slightly active to hold the integrity of the spine against the mat as you draw that knee outside of the body. A couple more smooth, nourishing breaths here. Good, and then draw that leg more toward the center line. Release the foot and let's take the hamstring stretch. You can interlace your hands back behind the hamstring area, or if you're really flexible, you could hold up behind the calf. Kind of check in with where you're at today to really emphasize that heel toward the sky and toes toward your face. Find the access to the back of the leg with your breath. Draw it a little closer. If you feel it softening and opening, kind of encourage more access into the back of the leg. Good, and then slowly release. Good, and let's take the twist. So bend the knee and just let that left knee draw to the side, drop over to the side, and then the left arm reaches out. Unwind the spine here, opening in through that upper and front side of the body, like that anterior side of the shoulder on the left into the pecs. I have a few patients that complain of the middle, like kind of in between your shoulder blade area, pain, kind of that's around the scapula. You get these knots and up into the back of the neck. And a lot of that is a result of the tightness in this area. So really like doing this daily um, will open up your spine so those muscles don't get kinked in the back. They're just kind of working hard and when you're because you're out of alignment because these are so tight. Good. And then come on back up. Good. And we'll set up for our fallen tree here. So that knee kind of hug it in, that left knee keeps it bent and then it opens out to the side. So that's called hip external rotation on that left side. So kind of that big opening outer. Now, like letting it rest somewhere is really nice. Like mine on this side makes it to the ground. I mean, I really feel I'm definitely leaning off to the side like I did on the other, but feel free to put a block support underneath that knee if you need, just so it's not like kind of hanging out to the side. And if you can encourage that right side down a little bit more so you feel kind of a little bit of that core support, and then you access more of those adductors. There's 4 adductors, and this really gets in there, opening up that inside line of the leg. And I have my hands just monitoring kind of the tops of my pelvis there, but you could have one to your heart and one to your belly if you want. There's a couple more smooth breaths here. Good. And then use that left hand to bring the knee back up to center. Awesome. And then we'll go ahead onto our tummies from here and up into a Sphinx pose. So kind of get up onto your forearms right away so that your shoulders are above your elbows, and then your forearms are parallel on your mat, and then really spread out your fingers is real nice. So kind of lengthen out. I'm like, even like, if you can kind of see, I'm like pulling myself like maybe a half inch to emphasize kind of length and opening in the belly area. I feel a really nice stretch there because that gets very compressed too and tight when we're kind of rounding in our posture and that hunched appearance. So this can get very tight too. And kind of want to open up through the belly where there's a lot, our stomach and our liver and our intestines live. So we don't want to have all that tension and tightness there, right? Kind of really open up and access that. I'm kind of leaning side to side too, which is nice. Like a little more work on one side. Good. And you can stay right here or come into neutral. And then we'll come into a low forearm plank. So I'm going to interlace my hands. You could keep them still wide like that if you prefer. I kind of like this nice triangle that the arms make. Tuck the toes and feel free to come to your knees like so, or tuck the toes and then lift the knees up. Just making sure that you're not sagging through, the low back, but fire up your legs, fire up your core. So navel towards spine and you're pushing into your forearms. Kind of chin comes in a little bit so you're not feeling any strain in your neck. Good. And then lower to your knees, lower all the way down that Sphinx again. So all the same options as before, right? You can still do your Sphinx pose here. If you're clasping your hands like me, kind of notice when you're on your forearms, like let the elbows slide to the side. You kind of roll over the skin. Like there's the radius and ulna of the lower arm muscles or bones, sorry, not muscles. And so they kind of twist on each other. So just as you kind of like the skin is rolling, like draw the skin and the elbows toward each other. So you kind of get that roll inward, that connection through that where the outer wrist would be, like if your watch was there, get that connected down. So there's a lot of power happening right there in that triangle, right? As you push down and the navel towards spine, come up to the knees, tuck the toes under, Hold right there and work the core and the arms, or go ahead, straighten the legs. Round 2 of this low plank. Yeah, and the legs, there's a lot of work on the legs, and my shoulders are over my elbows still. And PS, it's really hard to talk in this. So take a couple more deep breaths. And lower to your knees. Excellent work. And come back into a turbo child. So I like to have my arms a little more straightened and my hips over my knees. So there's a little bit more emphasis in like your lat stretch and the shoulders. You could have your arms straight up or make a little prayer above your head and lean back. Take a few rejuvenating breaths here. You're really inviting in the freshness of the spring. And coming out of kind of that frosty, hibernating, cozy feel of winter. You really connect with like time to plant some seeds and nurture new growth, right? In our body and our minds, clearing any winter residue. Good, and then releasing the hands overhead. And let's take a downward facing dog. So we get really grounded in through your hands, the fingertips, tuck the toes, lift the hips up and back. So you make this inverted V here with your body. Draw the ribs in, navel towards spine. Straighten out the arms. And I like to really ground down through my index finger, the base of the thumb, and firm the arms toward each other. Take a couple more powerful breaths here. Good, and then lower down to your knees. Let's step our right foot forward by our right thumb. And this is kind of a variation on our low lunge. So you can do any variation that you want to do actually, but we'll bring our hands to the inside of that right foot, right? And you could bring the hands down to a block. So we're looking for a stretch in front of that left thigh mostly. Kind of pull yourself through. So you're light on your hands, light on, and I'm grounding through that right foot, and I'm hugging my right knee into the outer right arm, right? So it's not flopping out to the side like our fallen tree. There's a lot of grounding through that foot. The knee is stacked over the ankle too. Getting situated here and finding in the structure of the pose, but then and the details, but really getting into the essence of the pose with your breath. Good. And then come out of it just slightly so that you can find your way into pigeon pose, or you can lay on your back for the figure 4 or any other hip opener of choice. Kind of drop that leg off onto like about 45 degrees, that front leg, and kind of wind that left side of the hip down to help even off the pelvis. Lower down onto your elbows. And then finding somewhere for your head to rest if you're in the pigeon pose. Just kind of settle and snuggle on in, kind of letting the tension that comes from the hip, like anywhere else that it tends to migrate, see if you can relax those spaces and bring your breath into the letting go and the surrendering into that right hip, the releasing of any tension. Right, and kind of moving into around as you need to feel an effective stretch, so that your breath is takes you right at the pose. You're right at the edge, right, of feeling effective stretch, but it's not
over the edge where your breath is rushed or quick, or there's any sort of pain in the knee or the ankle or anything like that. So you really want to just take yourself, like I said, to the edge where you can have mindful, smooth breaths here. And you can drop into that place of letting go. And make sure your breath is nice and expansive too into the ribs, the low ribs, the back body. Good, and slowly start to come up. Kind of lean off to the right hip and come back onto all fours and press back into a downward facing dog. Lift the hips up and back. And drop the heels down toward the ground. Good. Bend one knee at a time if you want to get a little deeper stretch into the backs of the legs. Good. And then lower down to your knees on your next exhale. And then step that left foot forward. And the left hand is on the inside of that foot. And you could use a block there to bring the earth up if you wanted to. Like kind of a version of a low lunge lizard pose. And then I like to untuck the back toes and just kind of reach my heart forward here, connecting that outer arm, left arm into the inner part of that shin. Find that counter balance there and force to even draw my heart through a little more, right? Kind of building all this integrity in our poses is like building a house, and the foundation. And if you try to cut corners and miss the details, the house is going to crumble. And same with us too. Like we really have to pay attention to these details and the fine micro movements so that we can, keep our bodies injury free and healthy. And even create new patterns for us, right? Of what maybe our houses have kind of shifted with time and age and wear and tear and all the things that we get bombarded with and stress. So it's like sometimes this yoga helps realign all that, right? And reconnect with the patterns that support us. Good. Come out of it just a little bit. And then let's head into the pigeon pose. Kind of wiggle that foot across the mat. Settle on down here. Straighten out the back leg. Open up through your heart and kind of have that angle in our shin here, and then do that flointing of the foot. You got a good view of that, where I'm not pointing my toes, I'm not dorsiflexion, this is called, but somewhere in between, and my big toe is stacked over the pinky. It feels super weird at first if you're doing this for the first time, but that aligns the two lower bones of the leg, the tibia and the fibula, correctly, right? So that your knee doesn't have any torque in it. So that really keeps it aligned. So if you kind of flop your foot and let it sickle and unengaged, it could over your practice of yoga, and it could create some wear and tear on something called the meniscus in the knee, that little cushioning. So you really want to keep that leg or that foot engaged. And you can kind of see that there in this view. Level off your pelvis as much as you can. and I like it at this 45-degree angle, but if that's kind of feeling tweaky in your knee, bring that foot down more and leg down more. I'm not a big fan of having it straight across the front of the mat. That's too much on the hip and the knee. And then it's just really nice and calming for your nervous system to have your head relaxing somewhere. So there's no tension in your face, right? And around the jaw or your neck or shoulders. You can come right up to the edge into the stretch of that left hip and all those external rotators in there. We hold a lot of emotions into our hips and our jaw. We kind of stash things there that we don't want to deal with, kind of like the things in our junk drawer, and just kind of leave them there. Right now, I feel like with coming into a pigeon, nice long hold, we're getting into kind of clearing out that junk drawer. So notice if things come up. Okay, just be that watchful observer and non-judgmental observer. Notice and support yourself with some nice full deep breaths. Breathe wide and spacious. Right, really get the exchange of the oxygen and carbon dioxide. Another couple deep breaths. And start to come on up slowly, wiggling out of it, coming over onto all fours, and then up into downward facing dog. Good, and then step your right foot up by the right thumb. Pivot that back foot on an angle. So we have like a shorter stance than like a warrior two. Angle up that foot. And so pyramid pose here. So I'm really kind of arching my back here, directing my torso toward my right leg, and then fold in and down here. Big hamstring stretch. And again, you could use blocks here, even the back of a chair, whatever supports you today to find into the hamstring stretch, maybe even calf, maybe even low back. So much is going on here. Deepen that right hip crease. Yeah, then you really feel access into the leg. Good, releasing the hand down. Let's bend into the right knee. I'm going to step it back because I'm super close to the wall. And then you're going to rise on up, bring that left knee in, our first standing and only standing pose today. You'll hug that left knee in and then open it up out to the side for a tree pose. I'm going to turn toward you. So it comes out to the side. We have that external rotation right at the femur and the hip and the pelvis. And notice how, I'll use the wall a little bit so I can show you what not to do. Kind of how I'm sagging out through that right hip out to the side. We want to hug that right hip in. So the right hip is stacked over the knee, over the ankle, right? So that's a lot of booty work. Your glutes really have to work here and kind of hug that in. It helps stabilize you and ground down through that strong leg, hands together at your heart. And make sure like it's nice that your hips stay level here. The tops of the hips, yeah, good. Strong standing leg, navel towards spine. The core helps with your balance. And breathe here. Good.
And then slowly release that left leg. Good. Kind of shake it out. Awesome. And then let's come down into that forward fold, step back into your downward dog just to get situated here with a full breath before we do the other side. Good. Left foot comes up by that left thumb. Let's send that right foot out to the side on an angle about 45 degrees. And then really deepen that left hip crease, which is going to help wind your torso toward your left leg. Fold in and down over that straight front leg. And you've got a good visual of that right knee. See if you can lift up on the kneecap, really get those quads to work, specifically like it's called the vastus medius obliquus, called the VMO. That supports your kneecap, that muscle. So see if you can lift up on the kneecap. And that takes a lot of the tension out of the hip crease muscles. Like there's some tendons up there that can grip and tighten. And then really dropping through the back of the head, the neck, the skull. Ground down through both feet equally here. Another full breath here. Good. And then come to the center of your mat. Wiggle your feet back. Ground down through that left leg. See if you can come upright and really hug that right knee in at the same time. Give yourself that balance challenge as you hug it in. Tailbone down, heart lifted, navel towards spine, right? Getting established in the balance and really hugging that left outer hip in. And then we'll come into our tree pose, getting that external rotation in through that right hip joint. The foot goes above or below the knee, right? We never want to be on our knee joint because we don't want to press at that knee joint, but really hug so that left hip is over the left knee, over the ankle, right? So we don't want to sag and not use those glutes. Push that foot into the upper inner thigh too. It's very helpful. I've got a lot of wind going on in here. I'm wiggling all over the place. And then hands to your heart center if you can. Widen your breath here, get grounded with your breath, but also anchored with a point of focus, somewhere that's not moving. Good. And then slowly release that right foot down, shake it out. Turn to the wide edge of your mat, and we'll take a wide forward fold here. So go bring the feet out really wide here. Even like you can bring your arms out to the side, kind of flip those wrists down. Yeah, and notice if like the fingertips were to, if you were to bring them down, they come right through the ankle joint. So that's how wide you want to be. Good. And then slide the hands down the legs, reaching toward the ankles, a little tip forward toward the balls of the feet. Yeah, that'll help get access the backs of the legs a little bit more. So you're not hanging out in your heels. Good. And then bend into your right knee, a little bit of a side lunge here. Opening up through that right knee, kind of nudging it with my right elbow just a little bit. You could come into a deeper side low lunge if you wanted to. But really let go in through the back of the head. Get that tension that we hold at the base of the skull. So you really release the crown of the head toward the floor. And then come back to center. Nice full breath here. Good. And bend into that left knee, that left elbow, little press. Reaching the sitting bones back, so side lunge here.
Close your eyes. And come back to center. Take a full breath here. Good. And then start to come halfway up. Good. Turn on your mat. So you come into a low squat. Bend into the knees. Sit low. Bring your hands together at your heart. It's nice to have something rolled up if your heels don't make it to the mat. Good. Soften the eyes, maybe even close them. Good, and then releasing the hands. Have a seat. Good, and roll onto your back. We'll come into happy baby. So we'll hold on to the outer edges of each foot. Good, or you can hold the shin or the back of the leg, and then just a gentle sway side to side. And then find your way back to center. And you can release the feet and place the feet down on the ground and the knees bent. Let's take a bridge pose, a nice grounding, equalizing bridge pose. So we'll place the backs of the arms against the mat, the palms up toward the sky. Even get that rotation, that's external rotation at the shoulder joint to really get the thumb toward the ground, press into the palms. Good. Curl the spine up one vertebrae at a time. Good. Connect down through the backs of the arms. Lift the hips up. And I like to even ground through my big toes, help neutralize out through the thighs so that your knees don't splay out to the side. Find that connection in the back of the arms, even the thumbs. Open up through the chest. There's a lot of action happening here in the legs and the arms, and even your core is helping keep the low back long, right? Without squeezing your buns. Good. It's almost like you're releasing the tailbone toward the backs of the knees. Take another deep breath here. And then slowly curl down the spine, one vertebrae at a time. Kind of feel like your whole spine uncurling here, unwinding. Awesome. And then we'll set up for a really sweet and rejuvenating and relaxing, yet relaxing Shavasana. So use what support you know that you like. Something underneath your knees is really nice for a tender back. I'm going to put my sweater back on because it's cool. So you might want to do that. But wherever you land, just see if you can bring your legs nice and wide, right? I mean, you want to do what supports you today in your rest. Then the arms out to the sides off the mats and the palms turned up toward the sky. And just kind of settle on down, like even moving like 10% more, like do what you need to do so you get just that little bit more of comfort. It really helps allow your body to let go and to really absorb your practice into all your cells. And just completely rest here in peace and relaxation. There's nothing you have to do to your breath. Just breathe naturally with a softness around your eyes. And softness around your fingers and your toes. let the length in the back of the neck so the chin is level to your forehead. And feel yourself being held by the earth. Comforted in your own skin, in your bones, in your muscles, in your nervous system. And to really let go here into the silence, and the stillness of your being. And as you lay here, notice the sensations that you're feeling within your body. Maybe right at the skin surface, but then in the deeper layers. And then notice any sensations that you're feeling in your heart. And then take some deeper breaths, breathing in a lightness. Moving that light throughout your whole body, in and around your heart and any of the shadows of your body and the insides. Wiggling your fingers and toes, gently bringing in movement, reaching your arms up overhead if you want to take a nice big stretch, pointing your toes. And then bending your knees. I always think it's interesting, like laying in Shavasana, like how good it feels to lay wherever you are. It could be a hardwood floor, right? And how like normally you lay on a hardwood floor and you might not be comfortable, right? But how that you built that comfort in your body. You created that relaxing state and comfort and coziness like underneath your skin, right? In your mind. And then roll to your right side when you're ready. And then come up to a comfortable seat, letting your heart lead you. and sitting up nice and tall and long through your spine. It's been a wonderful winter season with you, spending our time on our mats. Thank you so much for joining me. And the light within me honors the light within you. Namaste. I had so much fun on the mat with you, and I hope that you can join me again this spring. I really look forward to seeing you again, and thank you so much. Namaste. Good to see you. Bye. Oh, there we go.